So I want to show you a bit of the code and what's behind the scenes here. So the edge part. I use this diagram here often to talk about command query responsibility segregation, CQRS. You may have heard of it. Maybe some of you are already using it. And it's a very event-oriented approach for doing things. So it's CQRS and it's event sourcing. So you often hear about event sourcing as CQRS or CQRS and event sourcing, but this diagram shows you some of the mechanics of it. So I'm going to walk through this diagram because basically the code that is implemented is really addressing the different parts of this flow here. So the first part of the flow where this red arrow is at that I wanted to talk about is the client, say, sending in requests. Now, these requests come into the service interface, and the service interface basically is taking those requests. And there's two fundamental kinds of requests that these services take when you look at building services using things like event-oriented types of microservices. So one of the things, the inputs could be our incoming requests are considered to be commands. And a command is a request to perform some kind of a state-changing operation. So for example, add an item to a shopping cart. Add an item to a shopping cart changes the state of the shopping cart entity, right? But the command is an intent to perform this operation. It's not, it hasn't happened, something that hasn't happened yet. So the service interface is taking in these external requests and building up or sending off commands, add item, remove item, change quantity, those types of things. Another type of request could be to perform some kind of a query operation. So in the code, I want to show you the code for this, and I'll show you the HTTP server code. So this is the Where on Earth source code project. Again, this is all GitHub. You'll have the link for it at the end. And this is the HTTP server that's receiving requests. And one of the requests that can come in, defining a route here to handle various types of incoming requests. You can see some of them for JavaScript and the HTML and those types of things. But the one I want to show you here is this handle telemetry action post. So that goes off to a method here, this handle telemetry action, and it calls this method here, submit telemetry request. And I want to focus you on this line here, 102, because in this, this is where the routing happens. The incoming request, I pull what's called an entity ID, which is like the primary key, out of the incoming request. I build what's called an entity ref, which is kind of like an entity URL using some APIs that, from Akka. And then in this one line here, I say entity ref dot ask. That dot ask is saying, I want to send this object as a message to a specific entity somewhere in the cluster. This is all I have to do. I don't know where this entity is. I don't know if it's currently resident somewhere in the cluster or not. I don't care as a developer. All I'm doing is saying, yep, I got this message and I need to send it to an entity. So 3 lines of code and off it goes. So that was that, the incoming requests into those big circles, and then from the big circle, the lines coming out, going off to those smaller blue circles on the perimeter of the diagram. So this is the code that triggered that, sending the messages off. So all the routing happens in the Akka code itself.